In the age of the Norse clans, whispers spread that Fenrir's shadow walked the sky. Elders of the 9th century village of Hrafnsfjall warned children that the sky could be eaten. When the sun dimmed, Viking citizens of that era froze in terror. They believed Fenrir, son of Loki, had finally broken his chains. Skalds sang that every eclipse was the wolf testing his strength. In the 10th century fjord settlements, warriors gripped their spears when daylight faded. Mothers whispered to their children that Fenrir's hunger knew no end. The eclipse's first shadow was believed to be Fenrir's breath. Chieftain Eric the Old ordered horns to be sounded to scare the sky wolf away. The citizens of the Norse era beat their shields to create thunderous noise. As the sun dimmed, ravens circled above as if carrying warnings from Odin. The shadow creeping across the fields felt to villagers like Fenrir's paw stretching. Rune reader Astrid of Hrafnsfjall claimed the eclipse marked a coming omen. Warriors tightened the leather straps of their armor, ready for a battle against the unseen. The cold wind felt unnatural, as though the wolf exhaled across the land. Some believed the gods fought silently above, hidden behind the darkened sun. Children clung to carved wooden idols of Thor for protection. Livestock grew restless, sensing what people believed was Fenrir's approach. The eclipse reached its peak, and villagers feared the sun had been swallowed whole. Chieftain Eric raised his sword to the sky, begging the gods to drive Fenrir back. Ancient citizens believed that if the wolf won, endless winter would follow. Every heartbeat felt heavier as the world turned colder beneath the shadow. The seeress Astrid dropped bones onto the dirt to read the fate of the sun. Her eyes widened. She claimed Fenrir's hunger had grown stronger. Warriors beat their drums, believing sound weakened the sky wolf's grip. Smoke rose from every house as families burned herbs for divine protection. Shadows moved strangely, as if the land itself recoiled from the darkness. Some villagers believed Hel, ruler of the underworld, walked freely during eclipses. Dogs barked furiously at the sky, sensing something beyond mortal sight. Elders told that when Fenrir bit the sun, even gods held their breath. A shudder passed through the crowd when the sky turned an eerie, unnatural blue. Birds vanished into the trees, refusing to fly under the devoured sun. Eric commanded fires to be lit on every hilltop to strengthen the world's light. The villagers believed darkness fed Fenrir, so light became their only weapon. Astrid scattered red ochre dust into the wind as an offering to the gods. The dust drifted upward as if drawn toward the blackened sun. Citizens believed this meant the gods were still fighting the wolf. A distant rumble echoed across the fjord, mistaken for the wolf's growl. Even seasoned warriors felt their courage slip as the world dimmed further. Then, at the darkest moment, the world went silent, as though time paused. In that silence, villagers feared Fenrir had swallowed the last of the sun. The long night felt heavier than winter, pressing on every heart. Astrid raised her rune staff, claiming she sensed the wolf's hunger. Her runes trembled as if touched by an unseen force. Panic rippled through the village when the chickens refused to move. Even the fjord waters turned still, as though listening to the sky. The villagers believed this stillness meant the wolf had taken full control. Warriors lit incense, hoping to mask the scent of fear from prowling spirits. A strange chill crept through every doorway, uninvited and sharp. Citizens whispered that Fenrir's claws were scraping the sky. Eric the Old stepped out, trembling but refusing to show fear. With a shaking hand, he planted his sword into the earth for protection. He prayed silently to Tyr, the god who once bound the wolf. The villagers kneeled, fearing this might be their final dawn. The darkness thickened, turning day into a false midnight. Babies cried uncontrollably, sensing the world trembling. Wooden beams creaked as if the homes themselves feared collapse. Astrid declared that this was the closest Fenrir had come in generations. A low thunder rolled across the mountains, shaking loose snow. Villagers believed it was the sound of Fenrir gnawing the sun's edge. A group of warriors climbed to the top of the hill to burn offerings. Flames roared brightly, fighting against the invading darkness. Yet the firelight felt swallowed faster than usual. Villagers murmured that this meant Fenrir was gaining strength. Even the ravens stopped cawing, leaving only silence. The air grew tighter, as though the world forgot how to breathe. Some villagers started to faint from fear and lack of air. Astrid scattered crushed charcoal onto the ground to ward off spirits. The dust spread into a strange shape, resembling a wolf's jaw. Villagers gasped, believing it was a direct warning from the gods. Eric commanded everyone to strike their shields again. The ground shook with the force of their desperate drumming. It felt as if the noise might reach the heavens. But the darkness did not budge. Astrid whispered that the wolf was almost victorious. A sudden cold wind blasted down from the mountains. The torches flickered violently, barely staying lit. Snowflakes began to fall, though it was not the season. Villagers believed this snowfall came from Jotun giants aiding the wolf. A child pointed upward, trembling as the sun's last ring vanished completely. The village shivered under the total eclipse, as if caught in the jaws of the wolf. Fires burned low, their glow barely touching the surrounding darkness. Wolves howled from the distant forests, echoing the terror above. Even the mountains seemed to lean closer, listening to the unfolding doom. Villagers beat drums in rhythm, hoping to push back the darkness. Smoke from sacred fires twisted unnaturally toward the sun. Fenrir's shadow seemed to creep across the frozen fjord waters. Astrid threw herbs into the wind, believing they carried protective magic. The villagers imagined the wolf's teeth tearing the sky apart. Eric raised his spear, silent and resolute, facing the heavens. Even the fjord fish leapt in panic at the unnatural darkness. The villagers whispered old tales of the wolf that never slept. Bonfires formed a ring around the village, the last line of defense. Shadows danced violently across the walls of every home. The wolf's power seemed almost tangible, pressing down on every shoulder. Raffen the Elder marked the eclipse on a carved wooden calendar. The air felt thick with magic, and fear intertwined. Even the animals seemed to pray silently for the sun's return. The eclipse reached a point where the sky looked like a gaping mouth. Children huddled near the fire, clutching small carved talismans. The first glimpse of light was faint, but enough to spark hope. Villagers exhaled collectively, feeling the wolf retreat slightly. Fenrir's shadow shrank but did not vanish entirely. The fjord reflected the returning sun with trembling ripples. The village resumed small tasks, cautious but alive. Astrid checked her runes, confirming the wolf had not fully won. Warriors maintained their posts on the hills, vigilant. Smoke spiraled from all longhouse chimneys as a protective ritual. Birds cautiously returned to the trees, sensing the danger lessened. The villagers believed they had survived Fenrir's testing. Some children ran outside, chasing the first warm beams. Hrafn recorded the event on a carved tablet for future generations. The village celebrated the sun's partial return quietly. Astrid warned that Fenrir's hunger would return with another eclipse. Warriors sharpened weapons, not for battle, but for vigilance. The villagers stored extra food for the days of darkness to come. The wind carried whispers of the wolf retreating into distant mountains. Shadows shrank but remained etched on walls and floors. Fenrir's presence lingered like a warning in every silent corner. The sun fully emerged, bathing the village in golden light for the first time in hours. The villagers stepped outside cautiously, eyes still scanning the horizon. Even the fjord shimmered as if relieved to see the sun again. Hrafn traced the eclipse path on the village map carved in wood. Astrid marked the day in her book of runes for future generations. Villagers lit torches once more to honor the gods who protected them. The wolves retreated to distant mountains, growls fading into silence. Children ran through the courtyard, laughter breaking the tension. Smoke from the hearths rose lazily now, no longer twisted by fear. The villagers gave thanks to Odin, Thor, and Tyr silently. Eirik spoke to his people, urging them to remember this day always. They believed Fenrir would sleep for many decades before returning. The eclipse became a story sung by skalds for generations. Villagers repaired homes damaged by the storm and wind of fear. Livestock grazed calmly, no longer sensing danger. The fjord sparkled as though smiling upon the village. Astrid collected her runes, satisfied that balance returned. Eirik gazed at the mountains, wary of future eclipses. Villagers sang quietly, celebrating survival without drawing attention. Children played near melting snow, making shapes resembling Fenrir. The longhouse fires burned steadily, casting long, reassuring shadows. Elders recorded the event carefully, ensuring future generations would remember. Villagers tended gardens and stored food, returning to normal routines. The fjord reflected a golden sun, signaling the wolf's retreat. Birds returned to the trees, cautiously testing the safety of the world. Smoke from the chimneys spiraled lazily into the clear sky. Hrafn recorded every detail, carving each symbol into wood. Astrid reminded the villagers that Fenrir's hunger never truly ended. Villagers cleaned tools and sharpened weapons in case of future omens. Smoke from protective fires lingered like a faint shield. The wolf's shadow was gone, but the memory remained vivid in all hearts. Children chased each other, leaving footprints in the thawing snow. Wolves howled far away, reminders of nature's constant presence. Elders shared tales quietly by the hearth, preserving wisdom without fear. The village slowly returned to its daily rhythm under the bright sun. Birds filled the sky with cautious song, restoring normalcy. Smoke from last night's fires now carried warmth instead of fear. Children carved small wolf figures from wood, imitating the sky beast. Astrid stored her runestones carefully for the next generations. Warriors inspected shields and armor, making sure everything was in place. Villagers rebuilt fences damaged by winter storms, restoring order. As the sun warmed the faces that had feared darkness, rivers shimmered with renewed safety, and elders spoke quietly of the wolf, so children would learn respect. The eclipse became a tale of vigilance, and fires were tended with care as children laughed again, their fear melting away. Wolves slipped back into the forests, leaving only fading memory, while Astrid reminded everyone to honor the wolf's strength. Hrafn carved the final marks of the day, and villagers gathered to share warmth and food as Eric watched with quiet pride. Though the wolf's shadow had vanished, its lesson lived on as elders recited tales and villagers repaired what fear had broken. Livestock grazed calmly, birds returned to the skies, and smoke rose steadily from hearths. Astrid stored her runes with relief, while warriors kept watch with lighter hearts, and children's laughter echoed through the streets. Elders reflected on the wolf's future return. The village stored extra food, and shrines were built to thank the gods. Eirik led a small procession of gratitude as Astrid silently acknowledged the wolf's eternal hunger. Children shaped wolves from snow, while the fjord gleamed peacefully, and villagers sang soft songs celebrating the return of light. Wolves disappeared completely into distant forests as elders continued telling stories to preserve the lesson. Fires burned steadily. Children played fearlessly. Runes were stored safely. Weapons were inspected, and homes and fences were repaired. Sunlight warmed every face. Birds filled the air with song. Smoke drifted calmly upward, and although the wolf's shadow had passed, the memory remained. The villagers embraced the daylight together, knowing they had survived Fenrir's test.